G'day there. If you're sick of wondering, well, where did my money go this month? Then this video is absolutely for you, because in this video, I'm going to share with you a super simple budgeting strategy that changed my life, and I know it can change your life too. G'day there, my name is Phil McGilvray. I'm a financial coach, financial well-being consultant, and founder of the Money Boss movement. And in this video, I get to share something very special with you. Something that has literally changed my life, and I have no doubt it can change your life too. And yes, I am still talking budgeting, believe it or not. But what I want you to know is that I was one of the lucky ones. I had a grandma who took me aside when I was just 18 years old and taught me how to budget using physical glass jars and physical money, just like this one. Now, to say that that lesson was life-changing would be a significant understatement, because in the 35 years since I was 18, I have had the privilege to help tens of thousands of families set up budgets that actually work. And in this video, I want to take you through that exact 6-step process that my grandma taught me. It's simple, it's practical, it's proven, and it's helped thousands of people set up budgets that work, take control of their finances, get out of debt, consistently save more money, and create lives that they absolutely love. Okay, so before we get into looking at the 6 principles that Grandma taught me, what I'd like you to do is just share a little bit about Grandma's story, so you have some context and so you have a visual image of how this actually works. So my grandma was a widow. She lived in a 3-bedroom bungalow in Western-super-Mare, right next to Welbury Hill Forest. It was a beautiful location, and every month she would walk around to her post office to pick up her pension in cash. Now, these were the days before internet banking, so she'd walk home with cash. First thing she would do was take down the glass jars from her kitchen cupboard. Now, each of those glass jars had a masking tape label on it with the name of an expense, with the amount that she knew she needed to put in there each month, so that there would be enough in there when the bills turned up. Now, some of these jars, she'd put money in, for instance, the housekeeping jar, which was things like the groceries and clothes and haircuts. Most of that money would be spent at the end of each month. But then she had jars like her gas jar, where money would be put in there for 3 months, and then the quarterly bill would come along. She'd take the money out and pay the bill. And then she had the one jar that was the annual jar for her insurances. She'd put money in there all year, and then in the 12th month, she'd be able to put a hand in there and pay the insurance bill. Now, the important thing here is that after she'd finished topping up all her jars, she always made sure that there was some money left over. And that money allowed her to pay down her home loan extra fast, and it also allowed her, once the home loan was gone, to invest in mutual funds. And as a result of that, she retired died a fairly wealthy woman. It's such a simple strategy, and I hope you can get the image of Grandma coming home with a pension and putting money in all those jars, so that when those expenses turn up, the money was there ready to go. Now, of course, these days, we don't use physical glass jars. Well, you can, but most people don't. You could use paper budgets. You could use Excel budgets. You could use a software. Now, I have software that I have developed. It's called Grandma's Jars, based on this exact principle. And I can share more about that with you a little bit later on. But for now, I just want you to focus on the principles. Okay, so let's have a look at the 6 principles that Grandma taught me. You will see, now that I've given you the context, you'll see that these are very, very simple. Number 1, identify what all of your expenses are. Number 2, figure out how much all of those expenses are. Number 3, we want to break that down into a monthly figure. Number 4, we want to purposefully create a surplus. Once we've topped up all the jars, there needs to be some money left over. Number 5, let it accumulate. This is really important so that we can pay those big annual bills and those quarterly bills. And number 6, only spend what's in the jar. This is the golden rule of this strategy. Of any budget, really, only spend what you've allocated to that expense. Okay, so let's look at step number 1 in this process, and that is identifying what all your expenses are. Now, I regularly have people that will say to me, well, Phil, that's easy. We know what our expenses are. And they'll give me a nice list of what their rent is or what their mortgage is. They'll give me a nice list of their utilities. They'll give me a nice list of their insurances or their car expenses. And I said, well, that's great, but what do you spend on groceries? What do you spend on bought coffees and bought lunches? What do you spend on takeaway? What do you spend on clothes? What do you spend on cosmetics and haircuts? What do you spend on the pets, the kids' activities, the hobbies, the sports, and so on? And they'll just look at me. And this is where we go, right, okay, we need to make sure we get all of these things down. So we're looking at all your expenses, the fixed, the variable, the discretionary, the non-discretionary, everything needs to be in this list. Now, please don't get stuck in the weeds with this. Just do the job as thoroughly as you can. This should probably take you about 2 hours to do well. Now, to help you do this, you can download the financial worksheets, the budget worksheets that I use with all of my clients. You can grab a copy of that from the description down below, and there's a short training video that goes with it to show you how to do it. Using this spreadsheet alone will minimize the risk of you missing expenses significantly. So I'd encourage you to grab a copy of that. Step number 2 is then identifying what these expenses actually cost. So we know what the expenses are now. We need to now know, well, how much do each of these cost? And so the best way to do this is to review 3 to 6 months worth of spending. Going back through your bank and your credit card statements. And if you're a bit knowledgeable with this sort of thing, on your bank portal, you can get your bank statement from the first to the last day of the month, or your transactions for that month, and download it as a CSV file. And you can then sort the description, the expense description column, by A to Z, and it'll then put all of the grocery transactions together, it'll put all of the petrol transactions together, and so it just makes your job so much easier. And as I said to you, this should take no longer than a couple of hours to complete all of this. Again, don't forget to download the spreadsheet, because that'll be a really good prompt for you as to what do we need to be looking for. Okay, so let's have a look at step number 3. Step number 3 is breaking down all your expenses into a monthly figure. Now, what this is going to allow us to do is spread all of your costs across an entire year. So you think about Christmas, which can be a really stressful time for many people. If we've actually been putting money aside all year for Christmas, so let's say Christmas cost us $3,000, that means every month we're putting $250 in our jar, so that when Christmas arrives, the money is just there, no stress. We do that with your insurances, we do that with your car maintenance, we do that with replacing tires on the car. If we can do that across an entire year, everything suddenly starts to become far less stressful. And that's what we want to do with this process. No one month is responsible for any one expense. They're all spread out across the year. We want to then be able to compare, here is my monthly income with here is my monthly expenses, so that very clearly we can see, do I have will I run out of money before I filled up all my jars, or will there be some money left over after I filled up all my jars? We want to be able to see that very, very clearly up front. What this allows us to do, as I said, it avoids bill shock and budget blowouts, because every month we've been putting money aside so that when the big expenses turn up, the money is just there, ready to go, no stress. Okay, so let's have a look at step number 4. Step number 4 is we need to make sure we're spending less than we earn. Now, this is a golden rule of money management. It's no different with grandma's strategy as any other budgeting strategy. We need to make sure that we're spending less than we earn. So what this means is that, very simply, we come home with our pension just like grandma did, or our income just like grandma did. We take down our jars, we top up all our jars, and at the end of topping up all our jars, there should be some money left over. This is really important. So what we allocate to our jars needs to be less than what we're earning in income. We need to make sure that there's some money left over, and with those leftovers, we can use the extra to build a rainy day fund. The purpose of a rainy day fund is for those unexpected expenses that we simply can't budget for. You know what I mean? It's things like the car breaking down. Now, I'm not talking about routine maintenance. I'm talking about the car breaking down, the clutch going or so on. It could be the fridge dying. It could be the hot water system dying. It could be the dog getting sick. These sort of things happen all the time. We can't predict when they're going to happen. We can't predict how much they're going to be either. So having a rainy day fund is really key as a buffer for those unexpected expenses. So that is really important, and that's why we want to make sure that we have some surplus funds to build the rainy day. We also want it to eliminate debt. We also want it to fund life goals. We also want it to be able to get started investing. So making sure that there's less going to our jars than what we're earning is super important. Okay, so let's look at step number 5. Now, step number 5 is about how the budget actually works on a day-to-day basis. So what we've got now is every month, or you could do payday, though I do prefer monthly for a number of reasons. But every month, all of your jars get topped up. Okay, so we fill up all of our jars. Then what happens is what we don't spend in those jars each month should accumulate. So what this means is that some jars will be money in, money out. So I used the example before of my grandma's housekeeping jar, which was things like clothes and groceries and haircuts. most of that money would go in and most of it would be spent by the end of the month. These days, all of my clients, and you'll notice this on the spreadsheets that I've got, the everyday jar is the first jar, and that is things like the groceries, the petrol, the parking, the entertainment, bought coffees, bought lunches, takeaway, those sorts of things. And typically, we put money in that, and it's all gone by the end of the month. In some cases, it's all gone a few days before the end of the month, but it's all gone. Your communications jar, which is things like mobile phone, internet, streaming services, because they're all direct debits, money goes in, gets direct debited out, and at the end of the month, that jar is zero. And so there are some jars where money goes in, money goes out. Other jars, the money will accumulate all year. Car expenses jar, you've got your rego and your insurance and maintenance, and money will accumulate in there, in some cases for years, because it might be tires which you replace every 2 to 3 years. That builds up over time. So that you will find that many of the jars, it's a matter of them accumulating throughout the year. Now, to do this, obviously you need to keep track of, well, how much do I have in each jar? It's easy when we've got physical glass jars and physical money, because you got the jar, you got the money, it's all there. But these days, we typically don't use jars. You could use envelopes, and I know a lot of people that still do that. You could use spreadsheets. Certainly apps are the way to go these days. And if you're interested in learning more about the Grandma's Jars budgeting software, which I've set up, which comes with phone apps on Android and Apple and those sort of things, there is a link down below where you can find out more about that. Along with that too, there are regular workshops that actually help you get it set up and show you how to use it on an ongoing basis. But typically, you do want to at least have a spreadsheet. If you don't have a spreadsheet, then looking at there's a lot of apps around today and softwares that you can use to help you track what you're accumulating for all your future expenses. Okay, now let's have a look at the last step, the most important step, and this is you can only spend what you've got in the jar. This means no stealing from other jars. If you've run out of money for clothes in your grooming jar, then you can't go taking it from the car jar or the health jar. This is really important. We need to make sure that we're sticking to what we've allocated in the budget. But also, it's important that we review the budget regularly, especially initially, because chances are that what you've allowed up front the first time round isn't going to be right. There's going to have to be some little changes made to what you've allocated to each of your jars. As you start to use the budget, it's going to show you what's realistic and what's not. So very important that you review the jars on a regular basis. And even if you do get it right now, we all know that the cost of living is going up. That means what you're spending on groceries now is probably not going to be enough in 6 or 12 months' time. So we do need this constant process of reviewing the budget to make sure that what we're allowing is enough. And the last step in this process is to make sure that you have so you have a rainy day fund there to cover your unexpected expenses. The unexpected can and will happen. Things that we simply cannot anticipate or budget for. As I shared with you before, things like the dog getting sick, or the hot water system dying, or the fridge breaking down. These things happen. This year alone, we've had our hot water system die, our dishwasher die, and we had to replace the pads in our evaporative air conditioning, all of which cost about $8,000. None of that we could budget for, because it could have happened 5 years ago. It could have happened 5 years in the past. It chose to be this year. So making sure you've got a rainy day fund to cover those things is super important. Okay, so let's finish off with a quick summary. First and foremost, you need to know what all of your expenses are. Then you need to know how much those expenses are. And then you need to convert those expenses into a monthly figure. So basically, you're then able to go, well, here's my jar, here's my expense, and here's how much I need to put into that jar on a monthly basis. That is the goal of those first 3 steps in Grandma's process. And if you would like some help to do that, then you can download the financial worksheets in the description down below here that has a training video with it to show you how to do that. Second step in this process is you need a way of actually then managing your jars, seeing I've put money in the jars, how much have I spent and how much have I got left. If you would like to have a look at the Grandma's Jar software, then there is a link in the description down below here for you to do that. And then the third step in this process, if you would like some help just setting up a budget and getting some support to know exactly what to do and how to do it, and so that you don't get stuck and you don't get into that cycle of self-doubt and then giving up because you're not sure you're doing it right, then can I encourage you to join the Money Boss Academy, where we're all about helping people set their finances up for success. So check that out. Otherwise, hopefully this has been helpful. Click the like, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in the next video.